Hey everyone, back at Farmer Pat here. Today is a super exciting day for me. Do you know what this is, guys? This is Worm Factory 360. It's a worm composting bin. I am so excited. So a couple weeks ago, I had some dear friends of mine came and spent a girls' getaway at my house. We had a blast. But the last thing I expected is that they were going to get me a gift. And guys, they went out and got me a worm factory. So I am super excited. I've been wanting to try worm composting forever, and now I get to try it. And of course, I'm going to take you guys with me. So let's go ahead and set this up together. So this is it came with instructions. It's like a several page instructions on it. And let's go through and see what we have here. So first of all, it came with a bin, and it also came with all the equipment that you need to start your worm bin. All right, so let's see what we have here. So we have the base, we have the trays. So we have the base, we have the trays, we have, I think this is a watering can, a sprinkler tray, and we have the items that we're going to use. So we'll talk about them as we go along. So first, let's assemble it. So it shows that you have to set the collection base down. Then you're going to install the worm ladder. So now we have the base, and we're going to add the worm ladder to it. So it rests the worm ladder here. And what the worm ladder does, it allows the worms, if they fall into the base, it allows them to crawl back up into the upper trays. Then we're gonna add an empty tray. Step 3, add an empty tray. So there we have our base, the worm ladder, and the empty tray. And next, we're gonna add the lid. So you're setting aside, it comes with 4 trays, but it looks like when you initially set it up, you're gonna set aside the other 3 trays. You're setting it up with 1 tray to start off. Oh, what I like about this is that the cover of the tray has all these instructions on how to take care of the bin, how to feed them, the moisture level, the temperature that's required, and then it gives you a list of the food items. The food items as well as the fibers like shredded paper, Kleenex, napkins, junk mail, and healthy snacks. Okay, great. So this is really great. So you don't always have to have this. You don't have to always look it up. You can see the instructions right here. So definitely, normally I want to peel off labels, but definitely I'll leave this label on so I can remember until I feel more comfortable using it. So what's next? So of course you need worms. So it says you can get the worms by mail, and I know those can be ordered on Amazon, or some of these bins come with a voucher, or you can get them from your local farm. I would not recommend using worms from the garden because worms from the garden are a different breed of worms. The species of worm we need is red wrigglers. Let me see, and it says here, even though your garden is loaded with worms, they are probably the wrong species. So that's exactly what I just said. Definitely you need to use the red wrigglers. If your friend has a worm factory or a worm bin and they have the right worms, you can also use them. All right, so here are the items that they included in there. We have the coconut core, which is really just ground up coconut. They have pumice, and coconut core is great for retaining moisture and improving the quality of the worm castings. The pumice is a lightweight, porous volcanic rock, and it's right here. So we have the pumice that helps with aeration. It's right here. Helps with aeration, right? And drainage. And then the shredded paper, of course, that's the browns that you need. So you can use shredded paper, you can use newspapers, you can use cardboard, and I did a video on all the different things you can use. And they also include rock dust. And I've never used rock dust, but it says apply 1 to 2 tablespoons in each worm bin. So we're going to follow instructions. So it says prepare, of course, we have to prepare our bedding before the worms arrive. You don't want to buy the worms and then drop them into an empty bin. So you have to prepare these things ahead of time. And this is really good instructions. So far it's very, very clear. So let's see what's next. So preparing the bedding. So I'm gonna now mix half of the coconut coir, half of the shredded paper, and then add a small amount of water and squeeze it out. Only a few drops of water should come out. So I'm gonna do that and get right back. All right, so I just mixed up the coconut coir and the shredded paper. It all feels nice and moist. Let's do the squeeze test. Just a couple drops of water. So I would say this is good. This is great. Just mix in to make sure that there are no dry spots, because I want to make sure that there's a right amount of moisture for my worms. Because happy worms, happy compost. Yeah. Let's see. Let's do the squeeze test again. Just a couple drops of water. Perfect. Okay, next it says mix the moistened coconut coir and paper with half a bag of pumice and 1 tablespoon of rock dust that came with Worm Factory. So let's do that. So half a bag of the pumice. I'm just going to hold it like this. Yep, a little bit more. All right, so pumice is very light. I'm just mixing it in. And then I'm gonna put 1 tablespoon of the rock dust in. I don't have a, a tablespoon that I use for the garden, so just use a couple teaspoons. All right, so that's the rock dust is in. All right, so the rock dust is in. And mix it in well. All right, so step 3 just basically says we're going to use that mixture in our starter tray. And step 4 says we're going to add 1 or 2 cupfuls of garden soil or compost to the mixture to basically inoculate it with the beneficial microbes. So I'm going to go get a couple handfuls of garden soil to add to this. Then we're going to be ready to put them in our tray. All right, so I went outside and I got probably what's equivalent to a couple small little spades of soil. I took one from the chicken run area. Since I know, all kind of definitely beneficial microbes are over there. And then I also took one from my garden soil, which is mainly sand, but I mix that in well. So next it says, cover the bottom of the first starting tray with 1 or 2 sheets of dry newspaper. You'll only do this the first time. And thank God I got some newspaper this week. Some junk mail a junk newspaper that came that I don't read, but thank God I didn't throw it out. So I just doubled the layer. I mean, put 1 sheet doubled here. So I have that in. Then it says add the moist bedding mixture, spreading it evenly on top of the dry newspaper. Add 2 to 3 cups of food in one corner of the tray. So that's next. Let's do that. Where is my, all right, so let's add our mixture, spreading it evenly. All right, added my mixture, spreading it evenly. Following the instructions exactly for best results. The instructions said that you could also use compost if you wanted to instead of garden soil, but I chose to use my garden soil since I definitely have a lot of soil. Keep my compost for my bed. All right, so that's spread out evenly, and then I have, they said how much food? 2 to 3 cups of food in one corner. So I have a whole bunch of scraps I'm gonna put in the corner now. All right, so I have all kind of mixture. I have some soursop skin that I mean some sweet sop that I just finished eating. So all of the pulp and the skin is in there, and some I have some weeds in there. I have some jalapeno peppers that had fallen off that had gotten a little bit mushy. Some bell peppers. I sprinkle a little coffee grounds in there, and I crushed up some longevity spinach and passion fruit leaves. So I put that all in there. I didn't have too many peels. I really didn't do much cooking this week, so didn't have too many peels to add. But the worms aren't here yet, so I can always add more. So I would say I probably have 2 to 3 cups there already. I made sure everything is easy to eat, like cut up, so I wouldn't have add like a whole orange or whole fruit unless I cut it up so they can easily eat it. So the next step, or the final step for today, is to select 5 to 10 pages of newspaper with no slick color. Fold the paper so it will fit into the feeder. Wet the paper until it's damp but not dripping, and you have created a moist newspaper cover. So we're gonna, I have the Publix papers. It actually came in the same newspaper. I'm gonna soak this and lay it on top. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover it with the wet paper, with the wet newspaper. One thing you have to be careful of, you have to make sure that every layer of the newspaper is wet. When I opened it up before, it was dry on the inside, so just make sure when you add those 5 to 6 layers of newspaper, the newspaper layers are all wet. So I'm gonna, right, so I just laid the very damp layers or wet layers of newspapers on it. This will keep the moisture in, and of course put the cover on so it doesn't dry out. Then wait for our worms. Hey everyone! So now it's exactly 5 days since we set up our worm factory and we set up our food and bedding in there, and I ordered my worms. So the worms just came, guys, and I figured let's unpack it together. The box is pretty beat up, so I'm hoping the worms will be okay. So I'm gonna put the camera down and open up the box. All right. So I just put on my garden gloves because I don't feel like touching any worms. So I'm hoping I'm in frame. Let me see. Yep, I'm in frame. So we're gonna open this up and see what it looks like. And then we're gonna add the worms to the compost pile. It actually came with instructions. So it says, just got your worms. Worms should be introduced to their new environment as soon as possible. Place them in the center of your garden compost pile or compost bin. Sprinkle with water and cover with the moist newspaper or peat moss. So we already have the environment created, and we already have our moist newspaper to cover them up with. And I actually just found this piece of cardboard in the garden. I'm going to put this on top also. They do love cardboard. So when I had opened the bin a while ago, it seemed a little bit like it had started to get a little bit dry. So I sprinkled a little water because we don't want the worms drying out. It says during travel, worms, because they were traveling literally for 5 days, and worms can lose up to 70% of their body mass during travel. They literally dry out. So I want to make sure that the worms are okay. So I sprinkle some water before, and I'm going to sprinkle some water after. Not to make it wet and dripping, because you don't want to kill them. All right, so let's see what these worms look like. What I'm going to do is, because right now it's completely black, you can't see it, but it came in this bag. And I'm going to dump them into the worm bin and then show you what it looks like. All right, so this is a worm bin. You remember we did this last week. We added our layers of newspaper. So what I'm going to do is lift the layers of newspaper to expose the bedding. Guys, so that's the bedding that we created last week. It still feels moist. So, and we added our food here. What I did yesterday is I cut up some cantaloupe, so I added some cantaloupe. But you can see the food is already breaking down. You can see that white fungus, and they said that's fine. The food is, the worms, they said the worms don't actually just eat the food, they eat the broken down food. So it's good that the food is breaking down. So I added my food there, and then now let's see what these worms look like. I hope they're alive. I hope they are alive. So I'm shaking out my worms. Woo-wee! They are moving. Look at this, guys. Wow, they are alive. They are moving. They are ready to give me some compost. This is pretty exciting. I'm going to sprinkle it with water. They feel dry. Well, they don't feel too dry. It feels a little moist, but I'm going to follow instructions and sprinkle them with water. So I have just a little bit of water here. Just a light little sprinkle, not to make it wet. And then I'm going to cover them back over. Cover them back over. I feel like this is too many worms for this little bit of area. So what I'll probably do is I'm going to dig a hole in the garden and separate the worms and put some worms in the hole. So to make sure I have this area well covered with the newspaper. I don't want the worms crawling all over. What the instruction said is for the first 24 hours or so, keep a light on. Keep a light on right above the worms, because for the first 24 hours they're going to try to get acclimated to their new home, and they tend to crawl up, and when they crawl up they could end up crawling out, and then I don't want to have like a million worms on my patio. So by keeping the light on, they don't like light, they'll go back down. So I'm going to keep the light on the patio. I'm keeping them on the patio. I'm going to keep a light on so that way they'll stay in there and compost. So guys, this is my first layer. As each layer fills up, I'll add additional layers. Remember, there are 4 different containers, so I can end up having multiple layers of worms with compost. But this is just the first layer, guys. Super excited. So I'll be giving you guys an update as to how my worm composting is going, and you guys will be seeing the benefits of my worm compost in the garden. Worm poop is like the best manure there is, hands down. It really is very beneficial for the vegetables. I'm going to be getting some bigger, even more beautiful vegetables and fruits. So really looking forward to using this. This is just the beginning. As the worms grow and multiply, I plan on having worm compost areas throughout the garden. This is a really great start. But what I'll probably do is do some composting in place directly in the garden also, which will directly benefit all the plants around. So totally excited. Thanks to my friends, thanks to my WAP sisters my Bible study sisters who came together and bought this for me. And once you've put your layers of cardboard and newspaper back on, be sure to close this and keep it in an area that doesn't get too hot or too cold. Actually, I've been using this as my plant stand, and it's like really, really nice that way. So let me show you. And there you have it. I'm using it as a plant stand, and no one would ever know that I'm actually creating worm poop. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Till next time, let's go out and plant a seed. Let's go out and start worm composting or hot composting, or just, guys, let's just do something today to grow our own food, guys. We can do it. We can do it together. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and hit that notification bell and hit all so that you'll see all my upcoming videos. Okay, guys, till next time. Bye now. Say bye, Storm.